Only days after Elon Musk explicitly called out Bob Iger in front of the entire world, he doubled down, calling Disney's upcoming slate unwatchable. Then, adding insult to injury, this weekend's box office came out, further proving Elon Musk right. Audiences are boycotting Disney already, and it's not going to get any better. November of 2023 was the month of hell for Disney. It saw the release of The Marvels and Wish, both of which should by rights have been and needed to be among their biggest movies of the year, but which instead will lose Disney $500 million between them. After an already disastrous start, Wish dropped like a rock to 5th place in its second weekend, indicating that it's already dead, just like The Marvels, which Disney have now announced they will no longer be reporting the box office for, no doubt because they fear it will not be able to crack 200 million worldwide. Bob Iger appeared at the New York Times summit though, hoping to restore confidence, but courtesy of Elon Musk, and himself, but mostly Elon Musk. That backfired rather tremendously. In this editorial, we will begin with an extended look at how Bob Iger blamed literally everyone and everything but himself for Disney's current troubles of his own making. And to this end, we'll even be comparing his recent comments with a video interview from last year, and you won't believe the extent of his gaslighting, so you don't want to miss out on that. Then we'll see how he created a new adversary in Elon Musk, and how the single greatest problem facing Disney right now is the company's own employees, whom Bob Iger himself empowered. During the New York Times Steelbook Summit, Bob Iger set the record straight on a number of issues, and by setting the record straight, I mean outright obfuscating facts, rewriting history, and overall gaslight everyone in attendance, beginning with blaming Bob Chapek for everything that's wrong with Disney.
Okay, but now you're on the outside.
Right.
And you're watching...
Busy, doing other things.
Doing other things, but Bob Chapek's in that role.
Yes.
And you were thinking what?
I was disappointed in what I was seeing, both during the transition period when I was still there and while I was out.
I want to add some context to Iger's words here, because the behind-the-scenes story of Chapek and Iger has been documented extensively in an explosive piece by CNBC, which we have covered in detail, see videos linked to in the description. But to bring up the relevant bits, the reason Iger was so disappointed was that he appointed Chapek to CEO with the understanding that Chapek would function as Iger's mini-me and do everything that Iger wanted in every little detail. Instead, Chapek turned out to be his own man. While he broadly did what Iger wanted, he did a few things differently, and these differences may be why, despite the pandemic, Disney's highest ever recorded share price was deep into Chapek's reign, not Iger's, and that must have stuck up Iger's craw something fierce. It certainly did not go unanswered. So after establishing how disappointed he was in Chapek, Iger proceeded to let everyone know what he did about it.
But I really worked hard at distancing myself from it because, one, I couldn't do anything about it. In a way, it wasn't my business at all, really. It was his business to run.
When Iger says that he distanced himself from what Chapek was doing, what he means, and which was documented by CNBC and others, was actively undermine Chapek in the C-suite, in the boardroom, among staff, and even explicitly in the press. And also outright sabotage him. Remember that Scarlett Johansson lawsuit? Yeah, you can thank Bob Iger for that. In fact, as was documented by CNBC, every bit of bad press Bob Chapek ever got was directly or indirectly Iger's doing. I cannot think of any other example of a sitting chairman of the board going out of his way to sabotage the CEO as badly as Iger did Chapek. And here's the kicker: for all the things Iger blames Chapek for in vague and general terms, you'll be hard-pressed to find any specifics, because the simple fact of the matter is that Chapek did nothing wrong, outside of continuing what Iger had already started, and even that he tried to make work, and he actually succeeded as well as anyone could have, again with reference to the share price under Chapek. Of course, Iger does not bring that up. Instead, Chapek is being scapegoated for pretty much everything wrong with Disney. But since I hedged with pretty much, that means there's more blame to go around for Disney's current woes. Iger blames COVID and he blames streaming, but Warner and Universal had big theatrical hits despite that, so what is different at Disney? Nothing is obviously Iger's fault, so next in line to get blamed were Disney's own creatives.
In our particular case, and specifically about those films, some of those films, they were not as good, they were not as high in quality, not every one that you mentioned, as some of their predecessors, our films, and as they should have been, particularly in this environment.
Why do you think that was?
Well, The Marvels was shot during COVID. There wasn't as much supervision on the set, so to speak, where we have executives there really looking over what's being done day after day after day.
So is Iger suggesting that creatives need oversight? Film certainly did not take kindly to Iger's words, and are borderline accusing him of racism over the implication that the Marvels director Nia DaCosta needed oversight. That's Iger losing his own base right there, even the one suffering from Chapek derangement syndrome, something Film most definitely does. But about that supervision, isn't the studio heads like Kevin Feige enough? Because he's the one really being thrown under the bus here. Evidently, the likes of Kevin Feige is not enough. It is funny then that the decision that Iger has riled on Chapek the most for was establishing DMed, a new division that very specifically would have been tasked with overseeing creatives to ensure that what they were doing would resonate with the marketplace. Too bad that the first thing Iger did upon his return was abolish it, returning power to the very creatives that evidently cannot be trusted.
And that was a result of, mostly of COVID, but at the same time we increased our output tremendously to feed the streaming platforms. Too much, by the way.
Mistake.
Definite mistake. You know, quality needs attention to deliver quality. Doesn't happen by accident. And quantity, in our case, diluted quality, and Marvel suffered greatly from that.
Here it should be noted that the movies and series that were so bad for Marvel were the uber woke and diverse movies and series that the entertainment media complex were fawning over when they were first released. That brings us to Iger's second issue with the creatives, so let's set the stage for that. Audiences around the world have now lost faith in the Disney brand, as it explicitly promotes a brand of messaging bordering on social engineering that the overwhelming majority of the world's population are not in agreement with. Jeremy Boring, co-founder of the Daily Wire, recently appeared on Patrick Bet-David's Valuetainment and put the problem far more verbosely than I ever could. So before we move on with Iger, let's just hear what he has to say.
But I think the biggest problem that they have, and I know this from many, many incredibly gifted people within Disney with whom I've spoken over the last year, they fired everyone who knows how to engage in traditional storytelling without all of this woke nonsense in it. They created such a bubble over there that even if Bob Iger does say, if Bob Iger came out today and said, we're not even going to release the crap, we're going to take the hit, and then starting on a day 3 years from today, we're going to relaunch Disney. He doesn't have the team to do it. He said recently, we've waded too far into politics, and now we're gonna not pick these controversial political fights anymore. The people actually working for him who have to effectuate that plan do not know the difference between the controversial things they believe and the uncontroversial things that they believe, because they exist within a company that's a bubble, within an industry that is a bubble, within a city that's a bubble, within a state that's a bubble. That entire, well documented The right understands the left. We disagree, but we understand. The left does not understand the right. The left does not understand themselves. Disney has engaged in the greatest act of brand suicide that has probably ever happened in recorded history. The most beloved brand, the most goodwill, with the most important people, parents, on behalf of the most vulnerable people, children. We trust Disney for 3 consecutive generations. We as adults trust Disney with our children. Disney helped shape the worldview of every single adult in this country. We trusted them so much that we gave them tax breaks all over the country, like all the goodwill that came their way because they were so unique. And they created the greatest content library ever assembled in all of human history. And then they squandered it.
Clearly, Disney's own employees are liabilities, which would be why Chapek instated the DMED structure for the explicit purpose of keeping them in check and on the mission of pleasing audiences for the purpose of making Disney money. But Iger abolished DMED after Chapek had greenlit only one movie under it, namely Deadpool 3. So now, how is Iger going to be able to keep his own employees, nearly all of whom are as woke as it gets, in check? Let's see what Iger had to say.
I think what had happened over a period of time, it was building and building, and maybe it reached a peak of some sort while I was gone, is that creators lost sight of what their number one objective needed to be. Often when we entertain, and we've entertained as a company over the 100 years we've been in business, we have entertained with values and having a positive impact on the world in many different ways. I'd use Black Panther as a great example of that, just in terms of fostering acceptance, or the movie Coco, which Pixar did about the Day of the Dead. I like being able to do that. Entertain, and if you can infuse it with positive messages and have a good impact on the world, fantastic. But that should not be the objective. When I came back, what I have really tried to do is to return to our roots, which is, remember, we have to entertain first. It's not about messages. If you can do, again, if your story can have a positive impact, so there's that. And I've worked hard since I've been back at reminding the creative community, who are our partners, in some cases our employees, that that's the objective. And I don't really want to tolerate the opposite.
That's what Iger is saying now, after a year of non-stop woke failures. Now he's blaming the creatives for being woke, and he, Bob Iger, is letting them know that story comes first. But this is a massive flip-flop, because Iger is the one who hired and enabled these activists and cultural revolutionaries in the first place. Illustrating that, here is what Bob Iger told Disney's own woke employees when he returned 1 year ago.
Some of the subjects that have proven to be controversial as it relates to Disney have been branded political, and I don't necessarily believe they are. I don't think when you are telling stories and attempting to be a good citizen of the world, that that's political. This company has been telling stories for 100 years, and those stories have had a meaningful, positive impact on the world. And one of the reasons they've had a meaningful, positive impact is because one of the core values of our storytelling is inclusion and acceptance and tolerance. And we can't lose that. We just can't lose that. I think about Black Panther and the impact that had on the world, or a film like Coco. I mean, I could go on, and how we actually changed the world for the good. It must continue.
But now, 1 year and billions in losses later, let's see one more time what Iger has to say now.
When I came back, what I have really tried to do is to return to our roots, which is, remember, we have to entertain first. It's not about messages. If you can do, again, if your story can have a positive impact, so there's that. And I've worked hard since I've been back at reminding the creative community, who are our partners, in some cases our employees, that that's the objective. And I don't really want to tolerate the opposite.
Everybody got that? It's the employees' fault that they are woke. It definitely wasn't Iger. All of this is handy ammunition for Elon Musk though, so let's move on to him. Before we move on, some background is prudent. Back in the days of the Soviet Union, the official newspaper of the Supreme Communist Party was Pravda, and it declared what was true, what was disinformation the citizenry were required to ignore, who was in vogue and who was on the shit list at any given time, and most importantly, which opinions were acceptable to have and to express. Well, thanks to the Twitter files, we now know that the old pre-Elon Musk Twitter was, for all intents and purposes, the modern-day Pravda. There was no free speech there. It was never any kind of public marketplace, soapbox or other speaker's corner, as any voice deemed unacceptable was silenced and artificially deboosted, while the approved narrative was not only artificially made trending, it was augmented with bots. In fact, referencing my good friend and fellow Midnight's Edge in the Morning panelist Paul Chatto's recent video on where the hell is this modern audience Hollywood has been pandering to for several years now. If Hollywood did their market research based on what was trending on Twitter, they made their movies for an audience comprised almost exclusively of bots. But that aside, in removing the modern-day Pravda, Elon Musk made a lot of very powerful people very pissed off at him, and they will take him and X, his significantly more free Twitter, down by any means necessary. Cue the George Soros-funded Media Matters. Media Matters, allegedly, and in not so many words, used robots and bots over the course of weeks in order to orchestrate a limited number of instances where advertisements appeared next to unsavory content. Then they waited for Musk to say something that could be misconstrued in the worst way possible, which he eventually did, and ironically, it was a tweet that Musk later implied was a dig at none other than George Soros, who does fund groups that want to free a certain area situated between a river and a sea of a certain proportion of its population. And then Media Matters sent a black PR package to all of X's biggest advertisers who promptly cut their funding. Since Elon Musk reportedly can prove that the instances Media Matters reported were in fact provoked and orchestrated by them, a lawsuit has been filed. Meanwhile, Disney were among those who instantly dropped all their advertisements, to which Iger said,
We know Elon is larger than life in many respects, and that his name is very much tied to the companies he either has founded or he owns, whether it's Tesla, or SpaceX, SpaceX, or now X. And by him taking the position that he took in quite a public manner, we just felt that the association with that position and Elon Musk and X was not necessarily a positive one for us, and we decided we would pull our advertising. And we are now allowing entities at the company to use X as a platform to communicate. ABC News is a good example of that. ESPN, another. We use it.
But do you anticipate this is forever?
I haven't readdressed it since the decision was made.
So in other words, Disney will signal their virtue by no longer paying for advertising on X, but Disney's brands will still be there and promote their stuff through usual engagement, so we're not dealing with anything bad enough that Disney saw fit to end that. And then, shortly after Iger's interview had concluded, it was Elon Musk's turn to take to the stage, where he shared his thoughts on the likes of Disney not completely having closed the doors to advertising on X again.
There was advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go fuck yourself.
But
go fuck yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
He then clarified his position on those who would virtue signal.
We were talking about power and influence and...
I'm saying what I care about is the reality of goodness, not the perception of it. And what I see all over the place is people who care about looking good while doing evil. Fuck them. Okay?
And addressing Disney specifically, I imagine he found Bob Iger in the audience and stared right at him, as he relayed that the court of public opinion would not be on Disney's side if X were to be shut down over this.
And I just wonder and ask you and think about that for a second.
Tell it to the judge.
But the judge is going to be...
The judge is the public.
And you think that the public is going to say that Disney is making a mistake?
Yes.
And they're going to boycott Disney?
They already are.
Well, there are some that are for lots of different reasons.
No, Mr. Interviewer whose name Elon Musk got wrong. It is not some that boycott Disney. They just announced that they won't report on the Marvel's box office numbers anymore, probably because it won't crack 200 million worldwide, and Wish is shaping up to do as poorly. The Disney boycott is real, and it isn't going away. This whole debacle was followed by an increase in Premium X memberships and a decline in Disney Plus subscriptions, though only Disney knows how many. Realizing this though, Musk later doubled down. First, Musk pointed out Disney's hypocrisy with a visual presentation of problematic content relative to user base on some other major social media platforms that Disney still pay to advertise on, and based on that, it would appear Disney made a bad decision here. Then, after Scott Adams pointed out that cancel Disney Plus and cancel Hulu was trending, Musk stated, Disney has a major content problem. Almost their entire upcoming slate is unwatchable. They are the world's biggest example of go woke, go broke, LOL. And the content, of course, is indeed Disney's big problem. As we've seen earlier in this video, the big problem facing Disney is that damn near all the good people are gone and only the activists remain. Recently, Film Threat's Chris Gore, a regular guest on our Monday Midnight's Edge in the Morning streams, alongside his partner in crime Alan Ng, have revealed the toxic culture of fear that reign within Disney, where anyone expressing a point of view not sufficiently extreme left can expect a call from HR, and before long, a pink slip. Things are so bad that staff won't even work on projects that aren't all-out propaganda. If Iger intends to change that, he's gonna have to fire 10 times as many as he has so far. Iger may try to shift the blame to everyone and everything else, but in reality, this is all on him. He has made Disney a place where there's no magic and creativity goes to die, and that makes him the worst CEO Disney has ever had. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments.